Mattering. Someone to walk with you when you are suddenly alone. Guidance in navigating hard questions about your role in the world. A place where you can just be, not having to answer any questions. A circle to talk about the most interesting issues of life and even death. Someone to stand on a street corner and be an advocate for your issue, even if it isn't their issue, because you matter. Companions, to share your triumphs and your despairs. One of the disciplines I try to keep myself to, and sometimes it's hard, is I try to avoid rhetorical excess when I'm up here. Sometimes I'm very tempted. Every now and then I don't do it. But I can say, without rhetorical excess, that every week here, someone discovers that they matter. Discover it anew, in some cases, discover it for the first time. And that is something that I get to see each week, and David gets to see each week, and Melissa this year gets to see each week. But it's not something that we all get to see. So today is a chance for us to view that frame together. What is mattering? The dictionary says it is to be of importance, to have significance. The wisdom that we inherit here says that all living creatures matter, that all people matter, and that can sound trite, or it can sound like a truism. And yet, if you have ever experienced that day when you doubt that you do matter, then you know how much it means to be reminded that you do. Mattering. Someone to stand up with you when you need it. A helping hand. A card that makes you laugh out loud or tear up just knowing someone cares. A place to try speaking for the first time something you really believe but have never said out loud. A circle where you can state your dreams without fear of ridicule. A place to hold your largest aspirations for yourself and your world aloud and proud. Someone to hear you into truth. When we are seen and when we truly see each other, we remember our wholeness. So we are grateful this morning for those who will share their stories of mattering.
Good morning. Well, I've got the podium. I want to put in a real quick plug for next week's Share the Plate offering. I do this because it's going to benefit one of the things that I think is most important in our church, and that's the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. And they're very deserving, so I hope you remember to bring your checkbook along next Sunday. Many years ago, during the first Gulf War, my wife, Lyda, and I were distressed at what was going on in the world. We thought it'd be good to get together with some other like-minded people. We were new in the area, but happened to hear about the Mount Diablo Peace Center. And checking it out, we found out the center was what we needed at that time. When we investigated further, we discovered that the center was founded by and a part of this church under the leadership of Andy Balso, who many of you remember. That seemed like a good reason to attend a service, see how we liked it. So we came, and we got to hear Dave Salmon's sermons, and we were hooked, and we found it a friendly place and a place with people with like-mindedness. So we became involved in the church through that way. Later on, I became more involved in the Peace Center, even to the point of getting arrested a couple times. Yes, we have jailbirds in our congregation. Partially because of my involvement through the Peace Center, there are now a few hundred white crosses on the hill by the Lafayette BART station. And I know that because of my efforts, the peace movement is stronger in this area. This would not have happened had not a group of church members gotten together to organize during the dark days of the Vietnam War. Incidentally, in Vietnam, it's called the American War, which may be a better name for it. At any rate, the church is now an important part of our lives, and as we go into our sunset years, we know we have a support group and great friendships to ease this part of our life cycle. Thank you.
During World War II, I was in a camp in Arizona. It was Christmas, and those of us in our block were celebrating Christmas in the mess hall. And at the end of the party, such as it was, each child received a gift, simple one, you know, a book of paper dolls or a puzzle. But it warmed my heart to think that someone out there, in spite of all the fear and hatred of the Japanese, had remembered us and had gone so far as to give us each a gift for Christmas. And that was the American Friends Service Committee. In the last several years, as a member of the Immigration Task Force, I have attended vigils at the West County detention facility, the jail in Richmond. Because we were not allowed inside, we had our vigils outside the walls. We would sing some songs and offer some prayers, and sometimes we would hear testimony from people who had been the victims of our broken immigration system. And finally, after much effort, the group called Civic was allowed to go inside. So I have taken the opportunity to go inside and see what it was like inside. I forgot to mention that at the end of those vigils, we would make a whole lot of noise, either somebody beating a drum, and some of us would bring cans with pebbles in them, just so we could make a lot of noise to let the people inside know that we were there and that they were not forgotten. Being inside, my curiosity was cured when I saw where the place where we met was, as you would expect, clean but barren. But it was an opportunity to sit and meet people who were the detainees who were being held there just because they had not brought documents with them when they crossed the border. And it has been a very meaningful experience to talk to people one-on-one, to let them know that we care and that we will do whatever we can to help them. Some people want us to call members of their families to let them know what's going on with them. Other times there's a message for an attorney. We do our best to match them up with an attorney so that they can have help when they go for their court dates. But the idea is that we are there to do whatever we can. Sometimes it's very little, and sometimes they get deported anyway. But I feel that whatever small thing we can do for them shows that we care and that we are there to help. And that is very meaningful to me. I was once a social worker, and once a social worker, always a social worker.
Who was I 23 months ago? Confused, frustrated, lonely. George, my tall, warm-hearted, humorous Texan husband of 43 years, was struggling with depression. It had gone on for over 10-plus years. His world was becoming smaller, and his hearing was rapidly declining into total deafness. Our hopes soaring as he would switch medications, only to be dashed by unwanted side effects. I was gradually realizing it was up to me to be the primary provider and caretaker. In looking back, I now see that my world was also shrinking along with his as we struggled with the depths of deep depression. Couldn't I love him a little more? Couldn't I reach out and help him climb out of the deep abyss he was in? He had this wonderful UU community where he felt loved and supported. I resisted becoming part of it because I was afraid it would take away from the life I had created. April 22nd, 2012, 5:45 p.m. I had been gone overnight with our granddaughters, and I walked into our bedroom to find him dead. Shocked, frightened, and overwhelmed. I was almost instantly surrounded by friends and family, and very soon thereafter came in Reverend Leslie with her big warm embrace and gentle guidance. Then I knew everything would be all right. Friends and family surrounding us as we celebrated George's life in a beautiful service. 2 weeks later, everyone had left, and grief began to chip away at the shock. Lonely and fragile. 3 weeks later, I drive into the church parking lot and make the long, lonely walk through Borton Hall into the sanctuary, where I realized most everyone here knew who I was, but I knew very few people who had become good friends. Then I was drawn, however, to the peaceful surroundings and the wonderful energy, so I kept coming back. Then, church grief group. Let the healing begin. I felt accepted, honored, and loved. Leslie and David shepherded us through an enormous life transition. Deep, authentic friendships were formed. Leslie's gentle guidance continued as she would check in with me to make sure I was grieving and not suppressing my feelings as society tells us to do. Also, a little aside is as I would be sitting in one of the front rows during the services, and music or something that was said would bring up the emotions, and I would see Leslie looking at me directly in the eyes like, just let it go. You can cry, it's okay. And I was enjoying singing again for the first time in many, many years. I also discovered a calm centeredness I'd never experienced. Then, one of my passions reawakened, fundraising. Serve you, my right brain woke up. And I'm going to put a commercial in. May 2nd and 3rd, our first, hopefully annual, reused rummage sale is going to be taking place, and we need help, volunteers, and items. End of commercial. Let's see, where was I? Again, many more wonderful friendships were formed. Sitting in church after the Serve-You, Reverend Andy asked, "Are you willing to step back into your life?" My answer was a resounding yes, as long as I am an integral part of this magnificent UU community.
Our letter of thanks. Dear friends and members of the Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church,
My name is Rodney Lemery.
and I'm Errol Reyes. We are married to each other, and we matter.
Growing up, I hid who I was. I masked my sexuality in faux girlfriends and hyper-masculine talk. I was ashamed of myself and culturally confused by my ill-conceived understanding that gay meant dressing in drag and thinking that I was a second-class citizen.
Growing up, my effeminate mannerisms made me a target for ridicule and psychological teasing. It also resulted in a series of very unfortunate high school football games where I made touchdowns for the opposing team. Today, we know we matter. I know I matter because the incredible love I feel for another, who happens to share my biologic sex and gender, is honored by this congregation.
I know I matter because I have finally found a church home that respects me as a person and continues to support social justice issues.
Today, we want you all to know you matter. I know y'all matter, as many of you stood on the side of love for many years, while we waited for the state and federal governments to recognize that love felt inwardly should be allowed an outward expression in the form of same-sex marriage.
I know you all matter, as even though we have made incredible strides in struggle for same-sex marriage in California, many of you continue to demonstrate your commitment to our principle of recognizing inherent worth and dignity of everyone through your continued support in same-sex and transsexual rights in our state and beyond.
It is our relationship to one another that creates the space for each of us to matter. At the risk of being cliche and sounding like two very gay men, in the words of Broadway singers Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel from the musical Wicked, I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn.
And we are led to those who help us the most to grow, if we let them and we help them in return.
Well, we don't know if we believe that's true, but we know we are who we are today because of you. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun,
like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood.
We can say that we've been changed for the better, and because we know you, we have been changed for good.
Let's just take a moment and thank those who shared their story again, even with the commercial breaks. One more time. Thank you. And thank yourself for all that you do to make this possible. Because to matter is to be held in a larger frame, which extends beyond any day of the week, any single building or campus, even any particular set of beliefs or relationships. When we are held in the good regard of another, we are woven into a bigger narrative of meaning. Mother Teresa said, "Today, if we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other, that every person is my brother or my sister. So let us in this space remember all our kin, cousins included, remembering that we all belong, that we all matter."